Hello everyone, how are you? Yeah, it's Friday, right, okay. So I'm going to do something a bit different in this video. There's no playing and I'm not going to be going out and about. I'm going to do my own sort of Barbenheimer experiment. What's Barbenheimer? Well, recently the Barbie movie came out on the same day as Oppenheimer, and people were saying, which film should you watch first, which order should you watch them, that kind of thing, and what kind of experience do you come out of the cinema with at the end of it. Well, what I thought we'd look at today would be like Whiplash and the Paper Chase. And what I'm arguing is that basically Whiplash is like a semi-remake of the Paper Chase. Or if not a remake, it draws heavily from it. It's kind of like a reaction to the sort of like the glamour and the brilliant cinematography of this film. And in some ways the way that, like with classic films, that we actually, that we set them in stone as being, oh, these are landmark films and you can't touch them and nobody can better them, and saying, oh, modern films are crap and they don't have the same passion as those old films. But films like Whiplash actually do, and then obviously there's other films come out recently, but I just wanted to just draw some of these parallels. So I recommend you watch The Paper Chase first. So we'll start with a brief discussion of that. Now there's going to be some mild spoilers, so I'll put you in mind of that first of all. So basically, like The Paper Chase, it's directed by James Bridges, came out in about 1973. Stars Timothy Bottoms as Hart, but spelled H-A-R-T, like the deer, not H-E-A-R-T, like heart. It's not about a man with a big heart. It's more about heart, like the deer. When what I sort of tried to find out if there's some significance to that. Maybe the idea of like going on a quest or something, but also the idea of quarry, or prey, because the main antagonist is this law lecturer called Professor Kingsfield. He's brilliantly portrayed by John Houseman, and he's this ogre figure. He's like a tyrant. And the fact it's called Kingsfield, I mean, that either means like a battlefield, like recently I was talking about like Richard III, maybe Bosworth Field or somewhere like that. But more likely, if he's called Hart, it's the idea that in older times you'd get kings like Henry VIII would he'd reserve great areas of land for to be forested over, just so he could have an afternoon's hunting, and the main quarry being deer. So you got this idea of predator and prey already set up even before the narrative starts. The film itself starts with an empty lecture theatre, so it's almost like a stage play, and you can actually run it like a stage play, I think. So you got this empty lecture theatre. All the law students, they come in. You don't know who they are. It's like a fresh intake. Everybody takes their place. Kingsfield comes in, and he singles out. He's got this list of everybody's names and a photograph of them, and he points, Mr. Hart, can you tell me and it talks about this law case, which is all about like a wounded hand. That might come significant as well. And then Hart sort of, oh, I haven't done it. And he goes, stand up please, I can't hear you. Oh, right. So he stands up and he's mumbling still. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I haven't done it. I said, louder, fill the auditorium with your intellect, and along this sort of thing. So he's already this humiliation is starting early on in the film. And he says, well, I thought this was going to be an introductory lecture. I haven't done my homework. And he says, well, never assume anything in my class. And then he makes this comment, like this is Kingsfield. He makes this comment. He says, I don't give lectures. What I do instead, I ask questions and you answer them. And you know, and I go on asking you questions, and you go on answering, and in that way, I refine you, and you get a sharper mind and a deeper insight into the law, which is all very well. But it means that like these students, they're kind of like they're being run ragged. This is why it's called the paper chase, because there's all this case law that they've got to read up on, and it's not just the case law. It's not about like like it's, that one might be about the what are the rudiments of this case, but it's like, well, what are the key points of this case, and then you start to see how Kingsfield's starting to instill this idea of like this logic, this sort of critical aspect, who's involved. And you also start to get that idea as well. Like if you are going to be in a courtroom and you're defending a murderer, say, is that man innocent? Or are you, is a guilty man going to walk free? Or considering most of it was about like contract law, which itself is sort of quite metaphorical, but this idea that you're defending somebody, and somebody's going to lose a lot of money, or might lose a lot of money based on your ability to defend them. So you kind of see some of why Kingsfield has got to be the way he is. He's also kind of like a bit old and cynical as well, because he's seen it all. Unlike Fletcher in Whiplash, he's played by J.K. Simmons. He's slightly older than Fletcher, and he's sort of almost like around sort of retirement age, So you kind of do get that, you do get that idea. To him, it's just this, every year it's this sort of almost like a Groundhog Day for him. Like fresh intake of students, they don't know anything. He's got to train them up, etc., etc. So I mean, as the film goes on, you get introduced to other characters. There's this thing called the study group, because one of the students is called Ford. He has this idea that, well, if there's enough of them together, they each cover a module on the course, and then they become the expert in that module. And like sometime around the end of the year, they exchange notes. Like the expert will give somebody this big pack of the notes they need to revise. And then you start to see, well, that's kind of problematic, because you see that people don't do the work, or people start getting priggish about their work and get sort of really. There's a character in it called Bell. He ends up being known as Liberty Bell, and if you know about the Liberty Bell's got that big crack in it. So there's something metaphorical there going on. But the thing about Bell is that, like, he gets his notes together and he says, no, I'm not giving you these. I'm going to publish it. It's going to be a brilliant book on law. And everybody say, well, the book on law's already been published. Oh, well, this is better than that. But the thing is that, like, he's still an undergraduate, and this work hasn't been peer reviewed. He hasn't got the acumen, the experience of like a trained lawyer would have. It's like a trained, experienced lawyer would probably write a better book than he would as an undergraduate. All he's doing is just giving notes, etc., etc. And then we get coming back to like with Hart. You get this. He formulates this idea that within this lecture theatre, there's three tiers of student. There's the outer tier. They've basically given up. They're just going through the motions. Come Christmas, they'll probably drop out, or the next opportunity that comes along, they'll drop out. The second is like the middle tier, which Hart thinks is kind of in, which is where they'll answer the questions when they're asked, but that's all they'll do. and they're kind of like afraid of putting their hand up to answer because they know that Kingsfield is just going to demolish them. So basically, they haven't worked. You know, he's thinking they haven't worked hard enough. And then there's the inner circle, which is where like all like the really sharp students are, and they're putting their hand up even before like the question's been asked. You know, that they are almost like one step ahead of Kingsfield. They know the work. You know, there's like a female student in the auditorium, which shows the difference between then and now, because like this female student, you know, she's right every time. She's not kind of like a Mary Sue, but she's like, you know, we don't know that much about her. She's not that much developed in the class, and it's more kind of like a motivation for, you know, like the Hart's friends, you know, to actually try and do better. So Hart decides he wants to be in the inner circle, and then he starts pushing things away. Like, you know, he gets this girlfriend who's played by Lindsay Wagner. She's called Susan. And there's this bit in the park. You know, they're out in the park, and you know, and he says, "Oh, yeah, you know, I need sustenance." You know, because he's ruminating on this idea of how does he get in the inner circle, and he said, "I need sustenance. I need something nutritional." So she takes it, you know, that he's dumping her, and so then she buggers off, and then he's sort of like, "Oh, where do you go? Where do you go?" And he doesn't realise, you know, what a dick he's been. Sorry, bad my language, but he doesn't realise that, you know, he is being he's being a dick. So then, yeah, this is like one of the differences between Whiplash and Paper Chase is that, like, plot-wise, it turns out, this is where the spoilers are coming in. Sorry about this, but yeah, plot-wise, it turns out that Susan is Kingsfield's daughter. I don't know why they did that, but and it turns out that she's got all the insight on why Kingsfield is the way he is, and it turns out her ex-husband was somebody very like Hart, who was this law student, and then he decided to drop out just at this point where he could have been this brilliant lawyer and whatever. And even if he had been, there's this danger of being like the like a robot, you know, like a, you know, the Harvard being like almost like producing cookie cutter style law graduates, because they're all trained by Kingsfield, who himself was trained by somebody like Kingsfield a generation early, or, you know, or a generation or two earlier, because he's quite old now. But so she sort of like tells, you know, she's giving him insight, and then it's more about, it's not just this like war of nerves between like Hart and Kingsfield, because you know, like some of Hart's friends are saying, oh, you know, he did, you know, you hear about Kingsfield, oh, he demolished so and so, and Hart's saying, well, why are we arguing about Kingsfield sort of, you know, destroying somebody, when we should be looking at, like, you know, we're trying to be lawyers, you know, isn't this what we're trying to do? So so they break into like the law library, and they find all these notes, which is where basically, you know, like the preparatory notes that Kingsfield wrote when he was a student, and then Hart, you know, he actually, getting back to that idea of hunter and prey, it kind of like, it's the role reverses almost, because Hart then becomes he becomes like the hunter, and Kingsfield becomes the prey. You know, it's like, you know, hunting down the monster, the dragon, you know. So it's more about that, you know, there's that change there. But that in itself is also, that's covered by some of the other things that the film covers, like mental health. You know, like, you know, there's one of the characters, you know, Kevin. You know, he's very visibly, you know, he's looking like he's having a breakdown, and he, you know, and it's like he's about to break down in tears. And he says, look, I don't want you to see this. Can you go? You know, he's just come round, you know, like how your friends come round. He says, I don't want you to see this. And then it turns out that, you know, like they've been having some marriage, you know, Kevin's married, there's been some marriage problems. She ends up being pregnant. Of course, they haven't got any money. You know, having money is going to be dependent on him passing these exams, blah blah blah. There's all this stress building up like that, and then there's this whole thing about Kevin tries to kill himself. His wife Ashley, she's getting Hart to talk him out of it, and then Hart himself, he's showing signs of burnout because of he's studying and he's not getting enough sleep and he's not eating properly. Excuse me, he's not eating properly. So then it gets to the point where he's getting a bit more cynical, because now it's more about he's the hunter and Kingsfield's the quarry. Kingsfield's being a bugger like normal, and they ask him this question, and he goes, "Oh, I haven't got anything to say on the matter, but when I do, I'll let you know." And then Kingsfield, in that famous scene, he says, "Mr. Hart, here's a coin. Go and phone your mum. Tell her that you're not cut out to be a lawyer." And then he turns around and he goes, "Kingsfield, you're a son of a bitch," but he means it. Now, I mean, the thing is, this is the difference about films in the 70s compared with now. That he doesn't actually drop an F-bomb. He doesn't call him a C or not going to use that word. That's in Whiplash. We'll save it till then. And then Kingsfield sort of turns around and says, "That's the most sensible thing you've said all day. We'll sit down." So. And then we're almost near the end of the film then, and it sort of finishes with Kingsfield marking. He's got this big stack of exam papers. He marks the paper. Hart gets an A, obviously, but then Hart. Well, spoilers ahead here, I know, but when he gets the results, he just fashions them into a paper aeroplane and throws them into the sea. And there's all you can read into that what you will. Does that mean he's dropped out, or that ultimately the grades don't count? It's more whatever grade you've got, that doesn't make you an expert in what you've done necessarily. It's more about in the case of the law, it's more almost like becoming the law, if you like. Not I mean, I don't know, maybe foreshadowing like Judge Dredd, I am the law. That's a bit silly, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Sort of absorbing and embracing everything about it. I mean, and it's that you can almost make this film for most academic subjects, which is where we come to Whiplash, which is kind of similar because it's set in a jazz faculty, supposedly in New York, but I think they filmed it in Los Angeles, and it starts out with Andrew Neiman. Now, the way it's spelled, it means he's kind of like Newman, but almost like naive. So he's like a noob. So you could compare it with that sort of quarry idea from Hart. But compared with Hart, Andrew Neiman, he's obviously from a different. He's in a different culture. He never in a million years would he get to Harvard. But his passion is drumming and jazz, and so it starts out this scene where he's just doing like a paradiddle on the drums, which sort of links in with the end, but I'll get to that. And there's this shot of where there's all the practice rooms leading to where Andrew is practicing on the drums. But that shot itself, even though it's dark, it's kind of like a contrast to in Paper Chase, where the male dormitories were. That same lining. Except in Paper Chase it's very high key photography, whereas in Whiplash it's dark. So you get the idea that Andrew he's kind of in a dark place, but at least it's safe where he is. You get that sense of it, and he's a bit of a loner as well. And then Fletcher comes in, which is played by J.K. Simmons, and obviously there's a bit of bit of play on things like Darth Vader and Darth Sidious, and I'm surprised nobody's actually done one of those Star Wars, with Darth Vader with with Fletcher's voice over it. I mean, I really don't know why they haven't done that one yet. I mean, maybe somebody should do that. But then again, like the name Fletcher, that's an old English word. It means arrow maker. So we got this idea of like quarry and prey again set in place. So anyway, so he comes in and he's saying, you know who I am, you know I'm looking for players. So it sort of, you know, evokes this idea of, you know, like getting into like the inner circle in the Harvard Law School in Paper Chase. But then you get there's more of that though arises in the next few scenes where, you know, he gives Andrew the heads up about, you know, doing the double time swing, which means like the next day, you know, he can come in and he's going round and he's looking to scout out new talent, and he gets Andrew to play, and there's this other drummer there, and then he gets recruited for like the band, you know, like his band, you know, it's called, you know, the studio band, but it's like this, you know, like this sort of elite band within that Schaefer College. So it's kind of similar to like the, you know, like the law inner sanctum, you know, the law school inner sanctum group. But what we've also got though, compared with like the study group, that the three drummers, which is Andy and Tanner and Connolly, they hate each other. They're at each other's throats. They're competing to be like core drummer rather than helping each other. Whereas like in at least for some of the time in the study group, there were some strong friendships were made there, you know, especially between Hart and Kevin, and Hart and Fields, who set the thing up in the first place. So that seems to be making some comment on like, you know, modern male friendships and what they kind of mean. And then of course like the Fletcher's insults start, you know, and they're all based on like being emasculated and being gay and you know, and all those, you know, really derogatory. I mean, this is the thing though about, you know, like that kind of dark humour. At times it's still funny, but when you look at it as well, you know, you know that you know, nobody would get away with speaking to anybody like that. But it's, you know, because in the context of the film, you kind of see the dark humour is there as well. However, in the Paper Chase, the thing is that the you know, Hart, he's taking showers with the other lads that are in the law school. You know, you don't see him from the waist down, but you know. But what's that about? Is that like like a healthy male bonding thing, or, you know, like I always thought, you know, I was thinking it was kind of like a D.H. Lawrence sort of like, you know, healthy masculinity compared with toxic masculinity. You know, that it's healthy, you know, to be, you know, as long as you're looking after yourself, you know, to be satisfied in your own skin and appreciate that, you know, that other men are, you know, handsome and strong, and, you know, and have other men have vitality as well, and through that vitality, you know, it's kind of shared. But it's not necessarily a sexual thing. I don't know. I should like to comment on that. But even though even so, you know, when you actually watch you know, Paper Chase and you see these shower scenes or like these swimming scenes, you kind of think, well, is it a bit homoerotic, you know? And you know, for what reason? Is that because of the time? Because, you know, because people were a bit more freer and open in the 70s, or is it, like I say, like a D.H. Lawrence type thing where, you know, that Bridges, the director, is trying to get back to, you know, a sense of healthy masculinity, a sense of healthy competition. I don't know. But anyway, but the whole point there being is that these three drummers, that they're at each other's throats. You know, there's this bit where, you know, Simmons he ropes Connolly in to try and make Andrew, you know, do better. You know, and he gets, you know, Connolly does like the double time swing, and he turns around, what, with that shit? You know, I mean, it might, you know, in Paper Chase, you might say, "Come on, you need to do better too," but Hart wouldn't. Hart wouldn't do that. Like say Kingsfield had asked somebody gave a substandard answer. He wouldn't say, "Well, that's a crap answer." He wouldn't do that. And of course, there's the obvious thing about Nicole, who's played by Melissa Benoist. Is that how you pronounce her name? That he meets her at the cinema, the movie theatre, and she's like serving popcorn and Coke and like junk food basically. But that kind of goes back to Susan from the Paper Chase, and that whole line about how Hart says that I need sustenance. So obviously, like Nicole she seems to symbolise like a sort of junk food, something that's not giving him the nutrition that he needs. But it's misguided though, because of course Nicole he meets her in the cinema. Well, of course, like if Dir Chazelle is sort of like wholesale borrowing or alluding to like old cinema classics, then what Andy's overlooking is this idea of set pieces. That the way that Hart meets Susan in the Paper Chase, she just comes up to her and says, "Oh, some creepy guy's following me home. Can you walk me back to my apartment?" "Oh yeah, okay." And then so he agrees to do it. And so it's just a kind of like just a way of sort of writing her in. Thankfully, they didn't have it where Nicole was Fletcher's daughter. I don't know how that would have worked out. But you do get that sort of sense that she is, even though she's what little there is of her in that film, she is very good in it. What else? Where are we going on? So then we're kind of moving, and then of course we get the talk about the suicide of one of the students, even though Fletcher dresses it up as something else. But that sort of comes back to like with the thing with like Kevin in the Paper Chase, and the whole thing about the mental strain that these students were under, and that being reflected. What else? Where do we go from here? So and then the thing about the folder. Now I've seen a few videos and a few people commenting on like that Tanner has this like folder, and he gives it to Andy. He says like, look after this, and then of course he puts it down, gets a Coke from the machine. The folder's gone missing. Well, that goes, that I think that sort of alludes to in the Paper Chase, where that Bell character, that Liberty Bell, he's got this big stack of notes which he intends to publish, and there's this thing about near the end, Hart and Ford, they decide to clear off, and they think it's best just to book a hotel room for the weekend and just study like mad. And then then Bell's like at the window, well, what about my outline? And then of course like it gets, the wind blows it all over the place, and it all gets lost. So all that effort and him being priggish, all that is just it just shows that's a complete waste. It's, so I think it's a similar thing to that. Again, this idea of that if you want to pursue something and you want to pursue it to the core, you need to be moving past the notes. It needs to be here, and